And here we go. What I'm going to cover in the next couple minutes is incredibly important and something that's going to stay with you until you graduate from at least high school, maybe college, and very likely is going to be something that you go back to for the rest of your life. So pay attention today. Here is your I will, I can statement for today. Today, I will explain the purpose of a thesis and summary and create thesis and summary statements so I can develop a thesis and summary for my speech. So you may notice there, thesis and summary, thesis and summary, thesis and summary. Let's go. What's a thesis? A thesis is a preview of what you will talk about in the body of your speech. This is the first time you tell the audience what you're going to talk about. You directly come out and tell them specifically. These are the things that I'm covering for the next few minutes when I talk to you. The thesis is always the last sentence of your introductory paragraph. So remember, we hit the audience, HIT. This is the T part right here. Here are the parts of a thesis, or as I like to call it, your thesis pieces. Your thesis has two parts, a stem and branches. For this class, your stem should be, today I will talk about. Those 5 words need to be firmly ingrained in your mind right now. Today I will talk about. If you can keep those words in your head, you're going to do really, really well when you start to actually write speeches. After your stem, your branches are the 3 topics that you are going to cover. It should follow this pattern. Today I will talk about. That was my stem. Then A, B, and C are my branches. So, for example, today I will talk about Delaware, Kansas, and California. So, just like in math, if you think of a variable like X or Y or N, what you're doing for X, Y, and N is you're plugging in the main parts of your speech that you're going to cover. Delaware, Kansas, California. Could be pirates, the ships they sailed in, and where they sailed. Could be zebras, giraffes, and monkeys. But you're always going to start with today I will talk about, and then you're going to have 3 items after that. Moving on to the body. In the body of your speech, you're going to talk about those 3 topics in greater detail. This is where you actually give your speech, any research that you've done, any sort of facts that you've found, any interviews maybe that you've done with an expert. That's going to show up here in the body of your speech. Each body paragraph should discuss one of the ideas or branches from your thesis. Remember, A, B, or C, Delaware, Kansas, or California, okay? This is the second time you discuss the topics because you're actually talking about them to your audience. Okay, so you tell your audience what you're going to talk about, and then you talk about it. Big shock. Then, when you get to your concluding paragraph, you start with your summary. A summary is a review of what you just talked about in the body of your speech. So the thesis was the preview. The summary is a review. Simply go back to the thesis and restate it in the past tense. Or in other words, bum, 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 bum. If you haven't seen Back to the Future, you wouldn't understand that. And also, you need to see Back to the Future. Go watch it immediately. Anyway, go back to your thesis and simply flip the I will talk about into I talked about. So this is the third and final time you tell us what your topics are, or I suppose you could say what your topics were. The summary is always the first sentence of your closing paragraph. So let's review. The thesis is a preview. The body is the view, and the summary is a review. Think of it as like if you're approaching a mountain, you're driving in a car, you're approaching a mountain, and the mountain has a tunnel. Your thesis would be you getting ready to go into the tunnel. Then your actual speech would be you in the tunnel. And then your summary would be looking in the rearview mirror back at the tunnel you just went through. Okay? By the end of your speech, you've repeated your topic 3 times. Once in the thesis, again throughout the body, and then one last time in the summary, which may seem a little bit strange to you. So you're probably wondering, why do I need to repeat myself so many times? This is important. Remember this. Your audience does not have your speech in front of them to be able to read. Now, if this were an essay that was printed out, they could flip back and forth and they could go back to your thesis and reread it. But they don't have that luxury when they are listening to you talk. So, what your job is as the speaker is to constantly remind them what it is you're talking about. And like I was talking about last time, you're going to want to use transition words to let them know when you have moved on from one topic to another. So you need to be very direct with your audience when you're speaking to them. You don't want to try and cover anything up or be cute about how you're making your points with them. You want to be very direct and upfront with them on here's what I'm talking about. Here's what I'm talking about now. And here's what I just talked about. Okay. I call the STEM the www dot mnemonic device. Why do I call it that? Well, you have a when, you have a who, you have a what, and then you do some other talking. So when, today, who, I, what, we'll talk. And then you do other talking. www dot. Today I will talk about.